And over the summer, we've reported on a number of different attacks and talked about the position of dogs like this, not just the XL Bullies, but others as well. But I'm joined in the studio by Lakaydia Reynolds, who ended up in hospital in June with very serious injuries after being mauled. There was a video of this online, which must be horrendous for you to have seen. I saw it at the time, and I'm so glad to see you in the studio looking better. I know you're still dealing with the injuries and the trauma of what happened. But you were mauled by 2 XL Bullies and an American Pit Bull Terrier in Lambeth back in June. Tell us about the day. I mean, you were on your way to a driving lesson, is that right? Yeah.
I was on my way to a driving lesson, and it's a really small park that was near my house. And my friend was on the other side of the park, and I just walked through to meet her on the other end as she was going to accompany me to my driving lesson. And when I walked in, I turned to my right and I saw the owner with 3 dogs on a leash. And again, I wasn't scared of dogs, so it didn't trouble me at all. I continued to walk. Then he eventually let 2 of the dogs go, and they went off as dogs do, and they came up to me. And at first I thought they were playful, because again, I'm not scared of dogs. But I asked him if he could take his dogs, so that when I did get to my friend on the other side of the park, she wasn't scared, because I wouldn't want her to see me with 2 dogs following me. So that's all I thought. I thought usually dogs are just going to follow me. I didn't ever think that they would attack me. And then one of them jumped onto me. And when it jumped onto me, I turned to my right again and asked him if he could take his dog.
And how high up did it jump onto you?
It was literally, it had its paws on my chest. I was just resting.
Near your neck.
Yeah, resting on my chest. So I asked him again if he could take his dogs, and then he
could
called
you feel
for
the
them.
weight of that dog?
Yeah, it was very heavy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know they were that heavy, actually. And then he called for them. I didn't respond to him. And then after that, the dog just jumped up and tried to bite me on my face. And then the second one joined in, but this one went for my legs, whilst the other one was going for my face. So I spent a lot of time trying to dodge them. I wasn't successful with all the dodges, of course, because I ended up with a lip injury and an arm injury, as well as scratches and bites on my legs.
Thank God they didn't get to your neck.
Yeah, I was trying my best to stop them from getting my neck as well.
And your arm is still in a sling, a supportive sling.
Yes.
You've had some nerve damage in your arm from those injuries.
Yes, I have. Unfortunately, I have ulnar nerve damage, and I also obtained a shredded tricep as well. So I had to get plastic surgery on my right arm, which is also my dominant arm, and my lip.
Which isn't visible at all, can I just say, just to, like, you wouldn't know anything.
You
might
to think so.
You might, because of what you knew before, but it's not remotely visible. So in the moment, do you remember the sort of moment to moment, that attack?
Yeah, I remember thinking it was just dogs that were going to follow me, dogs that were just being friendly and just not being scared at the start until they started to attack me. And that's when I felt the fear, because I knew that hadn't I gotten away when I did, that they were definitely going to kill me.
Yeah, that was clear from the video. I saw the video. And your arm injuries are presumably defensive injuries when you were trying to get them off you, are they?
Yeah. And not just that, but one of the dog was just going for my arm. Like, it was so adamant to go for my arm, and I couldn't get it off. It was so strong that when I lifted up my arm like this, I think that was also in the video too, it was just hanging.
It came up with you, yeah.
And I couldn't get it off.
Well, I suppose from the dog's perspective, an arm is easier to grab onto than a shoulder or a thigh or whatever. So the owner attempts to get the dogs off, but clearly has no control over them in that instance. What about the third dog? Did that join in ever?
Yeah, the third dog that was on the leash also joined in when he did try to intervene.
And do you know how long this lasted?
So it actually went on for a few minutes, though the video was about 50 seconds, I believe, about that. It was only a minuscule snippet of what actually happened.
How did you get away?
What I had to do was, there was this period where the owner was able to like hold the dogs down, and all that was going on at this point was the last one was just on my arm, and he just he just wouldn't let go. So the owner tried to pull him off, but he just wouldn't let go. So I thought the only way I'm going to do this is if I had to take, luckily I had a hoodie on, which I wasn't even going to wear that day. I don't know why I just felt like wearing that hoodie that day.
So that's at least a layer of protection.
Yeah, it was a layer of protection. Or I know that my injuries would have been even more extensive than they were. But what I did was I had to take my hoodie off while trying to shake it and try to like maneuver my arm out the dog's mouth and just tear it out.
God, you have...
And then just run out of the park.
Great presence of mind you had to even... I mean, I suppose in survival mode, you think
adrenaline.
you think very... Could you feel your injuries at that point? Or was this about mind trying to solve the problem and get the hell away?
At first, when they started biting me, I could feel it. So I was saying ow a lot. Ow, 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 ow. And then after a while, I couldn't feel anything because of adrenaline. It was more about I need to get
this problem
away.
that you have to get away from, So when you took the hoodie off with the dog attached to it, did the owner then grab a modicum of control enough for you to run away?
So whilst I was getting my arm out of the dog's mouth, the owner was actually holding on to the dog. And then once I got out of the park, that was it. I was out of the
Danger.
vicinity.
Yeah. Were you near your friend by that point?
Yes.
God, she must have been horrified by what she was greeted with.
Especially as someone who was already petrified of dogs.
Yeah. And how did you get help then?
So there were people around that were around, but unfortunately they couldn't help, which is understandable because if the owner can't control the dogs, then who can?
Yeah.
So I think somebody called the ambulance, but the ambulance said that they were going to take about 20 minutes, but it was too long because my wound was really big and it was bleeding a lot. So my driving instructor, who was outside my house at the time, said that he would drive me to the hospital. But then he realised that it still wasn't going to be quick enough because he doesn't have the blue light like the police would. So he saw police in the area. I'm not sure if somebody had called them or if they were already there because I was focused on my arm and the fact that it hurt a lot.
Yeah.
He drove up to them and it was the police that actually took me to the hospital.
Really? And just lying in the back of their car were you?
Yeah.
With your friend with you as well? And I mean, if you feel you can, and I know you're still very distressed about what happened, but what did the injury look like at that point? I mean, how big was it? How deep was it?
It was really deep. So with nerves are actually close to your bone. So you can imagine how deep that bite had to be to cause nerve damage. It was so deep and so big that I could actually see my fat, which was scary for me because usually when you get a graze or something, you literally just see the flesh.
Yeah. So you were seeing beneath
I was
the
seeing
skin
beneath
layer.
it and I was seeing layers and...
Like a biology lesson.
It was literally a cross-section of my arm, which was really scary for me because I was like, wow.
Of course, yeah.
Like I honestly thought, I was like, oh my gosh, if this doesn't get infected, I'm going to lose my arm.
And your feelings about the dogs, or what do you feel about what we should do about this?
I think that there needs to be a lot of emphasis on responsible dog ownership. I feel as though some people are very irresponsible dog owners, which leads to situations like this. So had that dog had a muzzle, it wouldn't have bit me. And had it had been on a leash, it would have been in the owner's possession all that time. And I also think that mandatory training for dogs is very important. Statistics have shown that 40% of the dogs in the UK are untrained, which is terrible.
Yeah, anyone can get a dog.
Yeah.
Really easily. Who shouldn't have a dog sometimes.
It's so true.
Yeah. And your injuries, I mean, you haven't had your driving test yet. It was 2 days. It was 2 days away.
Just 2 days to go.
I think the DVLA should just give it to you as a
Me too.
Yeah. But you clearly haven't been able to carry on with that. Your dominant arm is the one that's injured. How has it got in the way of your life since?
So it also meant that I couldn't sit my university exams, which were only 2 weeks away, because it happened during the period that I would have been writing my dissertation, writing up everything, as well as studying for my exam. And that also meant that this year I'm not going to be doing what I should have been doing in terms of career goals, because I wanted to study medicine. And medicine you have to apply a whole year before.
Right.
Which means that now I'm a year behind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that I can see how that would frustrate you, but the most important thing is that you get well, and
definitely
that'll still be there when you need it to be there. And So you've got the sort of day-to-day stuff that you haven't been able to do. What have the doctors said to you about the nerve damage and any long-term effect on your use of that arm?
So every single day I'd ask them, is it guaranteed I get the feeling back in my hand? And they honestly couldn't promise me that, because nerves, they don't regenerate, they only repair, and they take so long to do so, and it's on a case-to-case basis. So somebody could get 100% recovery and somebody else could not have any progress at all.
So it's time and patience. And do you have therapy for it as well?
Yes, I get hand therapy.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's slow, but they did say that it's not going to be something that is quick.
Well, for your medical studies, you'll be taking plenty of mental notes about all of this.
I will have learned so much.
I was going to say, turning it into, it's not a positive, but trying to get some positives out of it. I really admire how your response to my question about what do we do about these dogs is such a thoughtful one, because I'm afraid I don't feel the same. Yours was the attack that most moved me, actually. When I saw that video, I just thought, what the hell is this? You're just walking through the streets and this happens. And I do feel like, we've got to stop this from happening. And I'm just impressed at how thoughtful you are about it. You really put the responsibility on the owner.
100%. And I'd put it on just management. I feel like anything without management causes havoc. Yeah.
And how are you mentally and emotionally about it? Because, you're handling this conversation brilliantly in a live studio and everything, but do you have your moments when do you have flashbacks to it all?
Yeah, I do. But I do try to see the positive in the situation. I consider myself lucky because not everybody did survive.
Yeah.
Like the man who died recently.
Yeah.
So that is my positive, that I did live to tell the tale and that I can speak for that man who couldn't speak for himself.
Yeah, well, good for you. And speak from a very informed position, because you know what it feels like to have one of those, 3 of those flaming dogs on top of you. And thank God, you've got enough injuries to deal with, but thank God it didn't get to your neck in any real way. Thank God. So nice to meet you at last.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've thought about you often since I saw that video. It's great to see you here looking so well. Lakaydia Reynolds, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you so much.